Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. I'm your host, Bestseller Vanava. Today, talking about saving energy, a term that's very familiar to many humanitarians, including myself. And I have done a lot of saving type of energy, generated a lot in my experience as a humanitarian, and have learned a lot of lessons. And currently, I have been coaching so many clients on this topic, and I thought I would dedicate a special episode to talk about just this because of the consequences it's having on ourselves, on our relationship with other people, and what to do about it if that's not really how we want to build relationships. So, as usual, we want to talk about what it is and how it shows up, and then why it is, and then what to do about it. So, and if you're someone who is having the saving issues or trying to save and not working and all of this, then absolutely come coach with me. I would love to get you to the other side. So, let us start with what it is. And I was thinking that we basically treat people in one of three ways. And this treatment probably depends on how we, like, most of the time, how we see them um, as humans, as their humanness from their inner world, not so much the outside world, even though outside world can help shape our perception of them, like titles or um, status or how close we know them, right? Those external things that we see of other people, they definitely shape us how we see them. But mostly when we look at their inner world, this is how we treat them. Either we treat them as under-resourced, meaning people who have no resources or don't have enough resources. Then we treat them as enough resources, like people who have people who are resourceful and they find their way, or we treat them in their power, meaning that we feel like they're powerful people or they have enough power to be, excuse me, doing what they want and achieving what they want in their lives, right? So when we treat someone, when we think about saving energy, this is how we usually treat them, is we treat them as under-resourced people, people who have no resources within. Therefore, we need to save them, right? A lot of times, resources like maybe lacking outside in the world, let's say about people we serve, refugees or displaced people, people who are affected by climate change, right? When we think about those people, we see that their resources outside in the world have been diminished or affected or even uprooted, and they have no resources outside. But because we see the outside circumstances that they have, therefore we interpret it as they also don't have resources within as humans, right? Therefore, our saving urge or saving energy starts. And one of the big leading beliefs that we have about them is that they can't handle whatever the situation they're having, and therefore I need to save them, right? This is like the variation might be available. Like you might be saying things like they are poor or they are affected, they're vulnerable, and therefore I need to save them, basically, right? So this might be the situation that you find yourself often, and it doesn't need to be, by the way, about the work situation for humanitarians. Because when we think of saving, we often think of our work, and maybe it's saving the people we're serving, saving the colleagues who are going through some tough times, right? We like it becomes very easy for us to do that because of also the job that we do. But this is the same thing that can happen in our personal relationships. And I have been coaching people on the personal relationship as well. And this, the way that it shows up is that we're trying to save the other person that we're dating or while trying to save our loved ones or our children or whoever they are, and feel like they can't really handle it without us. And then we need to do something about it. And that has certainly been my experience doing that, not only at work, but also in my personal relationships. Only later to find out that all this time I was trying to desperately save myself. And because I wasn't able to do that, I kept wanting to save all the other people. And I will be giving you an example or the specific ways that we can compare what happens or what we do when we are in the saving mode versus what we do when we are in the trusting mode. So let us have a look at the difference. And when I say energy, by the way, it's a feeling basically that you have when you think about saving someone, right? So the feeling can be different for everyone. Therefore, you need to check what that feeling is that's driving you to do things in that way or not doing things that you could otherwise do, right? So this is how it shows up if we do the comparison of the two actions. If we are governed by we need to save someone versus if we're governed by we trust the other person and their resources, right? So let's look at the first one is if we believe that we need to save someone because they can't handle on their own whatever the situation they are in, then what we're really wanting to do in that moment, or maybe then doing it, is that we are doing things for them, right? Because we're believing that they can't do it on their own, so therefore we are doing this for them. And we're also therefore undermining their capacity, their resilience, their resources that they have to be doing a lot of the things maybe on their own. And the other thing is we want to jump in to intervene to help them instead of seeing if they are using their own resources in the way that they could, and if not, maybe be there to understand how else can be of assistance. We also feel in that moment that our solution is better than their solution, right? So therefore, we just feel like, oh, if I do it, it will be faster, it will be easier, so let me just do it. And we basically end up deciding for them or on behalf of them, even though that's probably, we know many of the times that that's not useful way of building relationship with other adult humans, but we end up doing it often, or we want to push people to that decision, even though they don't really want to be making that decision, but we feel like because we know better, we want to push them to making that decision. And basically, we treat them dependent or we make them dependent in the sense of feeling like we are irreplaceable, a resource for them, or that giving them the feeling that they can't really be on their own without us, right? And then making them into dependent. And when I'm thinking about this or talking about this, think about this for your life, like personal relationships, not only for your work situation. Because at the work situation, I think you recognize many of the times how you might be doing it, because there has been a lot of discussions in terms of savior syndrome and all of this, right? So you may have heard of the white saviorism that keeps now being discussed in so many different ways, colonial saviorism that you may have heard. So therefore, at work, I feel like there are several discussions that may happen that alert us to how we're trying to save other people when it's actually not our place to do that. But we may often oversee that in our personal relationships as to how we might be doing that. This was certainly my experience as well, where I felt like I need to save the person that I'm with by doing all the things for that person. Like literally, I would be traveling to different places, different continents to be with that person so that that person can continue focusing on his work and then not disrupt his career, God forbid, because I really believe that he cannot handle traveling that distance, or he cannot handle taking time off and being with me, right? So therefore, I would be going to so many different places to be with that person, because I just believe that I am the like the strongest one in the relationship, so I may as well do that. And then I would also always undermine his abilities. Excuse me. So the way that I would undermine is that, oh, if I leave him, he will not be managing it, or if I say these things, he will be angry, therefore he will not process it well, or he will be so destroyed by what I'm going to say or how I'm feeling, that he will be so offended that then he will not be able to do other things in his life, right? So, and then every time I get the chance, I would be jumping into, like, even when we had conversations with him, with my ex, right? Obviously, in this case, I would be saying things like, "Oh, don't worry. If you can't do it, let me just do it. It's not a problem for me. I know exactly what to do, and you don't even worry about it. All you need to worry is show up." Basically, it's a bit like babysitting gone bad with another adult, right? And then the other thing I would always think about is like, of course, I always know the solutions, or I'm always the one who brings the solutions. He never does, or he's not good at it, or why would he? Because I know all the nuances, all the details, right? So I would always explain to myself why I'm the person who's always bringing the solutions. And then eventually I just like ending up deciding for them, for that person. And also realizing that I was building a personal relationship with my a romantic relationship with someone, where I was the one always trying to rescue, trying to save things, trying to fix things, trying to take care of things, so that he does not feel overwhelmed, or he does not feel whatever, right? So you can see that my relationship was affected by my saving energy, which is in my case believing that he can't handle XYZ, and therefore let me do it. And therefore, the relationship that I was not building, which I was wanting to build, but I was so busy in my frustrations and resentments of how he cannot do this and all of this, even though I was the one who was always trying to solve things, trying to rescue things, right? But then feeling resentment that he's not equal to me, or he's not doing this relationship equally. And I would be so indulging in those emotions. Now, had I decided to do a relationship based on trust, the energy of trust, the feeling of trust, meaning that they are autonomous, independent human beings like I am, and we're both capable of building relationships where we come together and do things together, right? Or treat each other equal, trusting them that they will know the answers, or they will always propose solutions just like I would, discussing things with them, and also respecting their autonomy, their authority, their independence, just like I respect mine as well. I could have created this type of relationships with that person at the time, but lessons learned, I have thankfully done it since then. But I really want you to think about how your relationship would be different if you were not in the saving mode, and how it is showing up for your life currently when you are in the saving mode. And this you can apply to work relationships, at home, with your friends, whoever it is. You can start thinking about, okay, when I'm thinking of them not being able to do XYZ, or them depending on my solution, or me feeling like I know better than them, or whatever the feelings or the thoughts that create the saving mindset, then check with yourself how you are showing up in that relationship, what you're doing, what you're not doing. And then equally, what would be different if you trusted their resources, resourcefulness, whichever the way that you can relate to that word more, as well as much as how you trust yourself, right? So let us look at why we get, yes, as a result, and this is the part that I forgot to tell you is what happens when we are in the saving mode is essentially we make sure they believe our story, right? And the way that I'm saying it is that if we believe that they can't handle on their own, even though in that situation where it's a difficult situation for them and they're not, excuse me, they're not able to handle certain things in that situation. But if we add our belief onto their belief, then we'll just make sure that they will be okay. They also tell me, or they also see that I can't handle it, right? So it will be just like a confirmation for our brains, and our brains love confirmation from other people as to how weak we are or how incapable we are, and therefore we just internalize it and therefore not even want to do anything about it. So think about how it shows up for the other person in how it is from their perspective, right? So that would be one of the ways for you to think about, do you really want to be the person who confirms their own biases, or you want to be the person who trusts and believes in their resourcefulness and accessing those? The other one is making sure that they become dependent, right? That we keep always thinking that our solution is better, or we know better, or whatever we do or say works. When we keep doing that, then eventually they just don't own their own agency, and then they become dependent on us in terms of what's best for them. And then we keep feeling useful, that we are wanted or we are useful in that conversation or in that relationship. We feel like they can't really do this without us. We feel maybe good about that, but also at the same time feeling resentful at times when they don't really follow the way we said they would, and then us not liking them, and then we get into those conversations. And the reason why that is because we believe that we have the better answer, essentially, right? So when we're saving someone, we are believing that we are the one who needs to save them. And that's also an interesting concept for you to think about. Why do we believe that we are the one who should save them, or we are the one well equipped to save them, right? That's a very interesting question for us to reflect on. And the other one is because we don't trust their resourcefulness, right? And because we believe that, or we want to be right in whatever we're saying, and then we feel bad if we don't feel right, or if we don't feel useful, or if we don't feel like our expertise or our greatness is not used by other people, maybe, and therefore we may get into the saving energy. Now, what to do? Yeah. What to do is there are essentially two approaches that I would like to suggest here. One is treat other adults like they have enough resources, at least, whatever their circumstances are, whatever they're going through. Because we humans go through a lot of challenges in life, and it seems like life does not exist without challenges, right? So therefore, when we know that, and also we know that we have resources within to be handling those challenges, or to be failing at them but learning from them, or to be getting stronger after them, all of this experience is something that we all need to go through. Therefore, treating them like people who have enough resources for that situation to go through, to handle, to make decisions, to solve problems. And then our job is in that moment discussing with them, asking them how they see their situation, how they see that we could do something with them. In other words, guided by them and not ourselves when it comes to work, but also in personal relationships, how we can be guided by our own independent, autonomous decisions and discussions together, right? And in the second thing that we can do is challenge our mindset. And one of the ways that you can challenge it, sorry, the third one is actually part of the second one, so never mind. One of the things you can challenge is definitely question what you believe, excuse me, what you believe to be true, right? So for instance, why do you feel the need to save, right? That's a very simple question that you may have already reflected on. The other one is, how do you show up in a relationship if you weren't in the saving mode, right? What would be different in your relationship with your work colleagues, with personal relationships? How it would be different if you were not in the saving mode? The third one is, what kind of relationship do you want to build with other people, right? And in building that relationship, how do you want to show up? How do you want to treat them? All of this can be great questions to reflect on. But one of the biggest things that I would like for you to reflect on is check that specific situation where you're in. Let's say that your work colleague is going some struggles and you feel like you need to do something, you feel like you need to save them, right? You feel like you need to do something for them or decide something for them. Basically, when you are in that stage, challenge your mindset around, why do you believe they can't handle their current situation? And when you check with yourself, I was coaching one of my clients recently, and she was telling me that the reason why she wanted to save the other person basically is because she believed the other person cannot handle that situation because it's very overwhelming for that person. But her own mindset or her own belief is that overwhelming situations are difficult to handle or cannot be handled. That was her own mindset, right? That was her own belief. And because she believed her own story that overwhelming situations are so difficult to handle, then projecting that to the colleague and thinking about how she can save the other person. And that's a very human thing to do, is that many of us want to, or even without recognizing, project our beliefs onto other people, right? So for instance, if I have a lot of experience of exam failure and not feeling good about it and all of this, and then someone else, let's say, failed the exam, I would be maybe trying to do something so that they don't go through the experience that I go through. And it's a very noble and nice quality that many of us humanitarians have, but also notice the consequences of that on that relationship, right? And consequences of that on us, especially when we are building personal relationships, especially when we are going on dates and we are always on the saving mode. Think about what kind of relationships we're building in that environment or in that context, right? And what if we keep approaching our dating scene or persons that we're dating from the I need to save them energy, then meeting the people who need saving, right? Or them believing that we need saving and therefore them being with us out of pity and not because they really want to be with us, right? So therefore, knowing and recognizing and being aware of these consequences, then we can start cleaning up our saving energy and changing, excuse me, our story from I need to save them, but rather I trust they have resources. I have resources as well, and therefore let us work things together, or let us get that person to accessing those resources before we do anything else, right? The same for the relationship is, instead of, oh my God, I need to be solving all the problems, or I need to be going and doing everything to make this relationship work, otherwise it won't. Instead of being in that energy, how we could do this together, in that I treat the other person as equal to me. We are in partnership. And in that partnership, what are the things he or she cannot, she can do, what are the things I will do, how we can make this relationship work if we're working on it, or how we can make this relationship thrive, and not out of saving energy, but out of trusting and wanting to make or be in this relationship, right? So that's why I really think it's important for us to understand what our saving energy is, where it's coming from, and also how do we clean up or change it in the way that it doesn't interfere our building of relationships of love, relationships of trust, relationships of prospering, instead of codependency or one trying to save the other. So if you'd like to get coaching on this and build those type of amazing love and trusting relationships, then absolutely come coach with me. I would love to do this with you. Until then, have an amazing week.